Hey, I'm Dan. I run philosophy at Godalming College, and philosophy is one of those strange subjects that not really many people know a lot about it. It's actually one of the most ancient and important subjects that you can study. It really, if you look 500 years ago, it's known as the Queen of the Sciences. 500 years ago, things like physics and biology and chemistry existed as branches of philosophy and were known as natural philosophy, and the people that studied those questions were natural philosophers.
Hi, I'm Peggy and I study philosophy at A-level. I chose philosophy because I've always been really interested in theoretical questions. Initially, I thought that I was going to be doing sociology, but I found that philosophy was actually a lot more where I aligned in what I wanted to study, as it's a lot more theoretical than sociology is.
Hi, my name's Rory and I study philosophy at Godalming College. I chose philosophy because it's a very different subject. It allows you to rather than studying what to think, it's how to think and how you can approach different things. So that's not so strict to a set topic.
Philosophy is a subject that asks very deep, meaningful and fundamental questions about reality. Questions like, what does it all mean? Why am I alive? Does God exist? What is the mind? What is everything made of? So it's a subject that touches on a number of every other subject, really. And philosophy at its core is questioning. It's about asking deep and fundamental questions about reality, but more than that, it's about coming up with strong, logical answers to those questions. So the bread and butter, if you like, of a philosopher is argumentation, discussion and argumentation. Through communication, we're able to explore ideas and test the ideas that we come up with against objections and issues that perhaps we haven't thought of, and that's largely what we'll be doing in the classroom. Philosophy A-level is themed around four main questions. What is knowledge? How should I live my life? Does God exist? And is the mind distinct from the brain? So in epistemology, which is the study of knowledge, we will ask questions like, how do we define a word? How do we gain knowledge? Does it come from experience, or are we born knowing things about the world? And finally, are there limits to what we can know? Are there limits, for example, to what science can tell us about the world? In moral philosophy, we'll consider questions on how we should live our lives, whether we should, how we determine what is right and wrong, whether we should aim to flourish and live good lives, or whether all that matters is that we maximize pleasure. We'll also consider more fundamental questions, like whether morality exists or whether nihilism is true. And if nihilism is true and there are no moral truths in reality, then why at all should we be good people, and why at all should we do the right thing? So those two questions are the main themes of the first year of the course. The second year introduces you to the questions of whether there is a divine being which exists in reality, which we commonly call God. We'll examine many arguments for God's existence and some of the issues with those arguments. We'll consider the nature of evil as well, and whether that poses a major challenge to God's existence. We'll also finally consider the nature of the mind, and this is the topic and the question which overlaps the most with science. If you study psychology, for example, this pairs very nicely. So we will consider, through the question of whether the mind exists, whether science itself can tell us everything that there is to know about the world, whether everything that exists in reality is physical, or whether there are some things like the mind that exists that are not physical at all. So we'll consider various theories. We'll consider whether animals can have minds and whether there are moral implications to that. And we'll also consider whether machines and robots and perhaps even computer programs can have minds as well. And through that, challenge how we fundamentally understand ourselves.
I really enjoyed the breadth. You really cover a lot of different topics and in quite a lot of detail as well, which can be quite a lot to learn, but it's all very interesting and there's never really a dull topic.
My favourite bit about the course is probably just how diverse it is. You study 4 different topics which are so complete. You do mind, God, epistemology and ethics, which are completely different. So each time you're changing from topic to topic, it's a completely different way of arguing, and it's just really nice and diverse.
The key thing to take away is that philosophy is not religious studies. Religious studies examines religious belief, religious worship, and of course the question whether God exists. But philosophy is a broader, deeper, and very different A-level and very different subject. It is more challenging, it is more demanding, and we will not study any theories or beliefs of how we should worship God. A common question on the course is just how RS overlaps with philosophy and why at GCSE there is no philosophy GCSE and philosophy is encountered at the GCSE level. That is largely because they are distinct. They are distinct subjects, and philosophy is challenging. It is as challenging as physics and further maths in terms of the conceptual and abstract ideas that you encounter, but also in terms of the kind of mathematical requirements in terms of linear reasoning. And for that reason, we do ask that you have a good maths and a good English grade. It's important that you're able to communicate written communication and verbal communication, but also another key skill is the ability to think just in a very sequential way. So even though we won't be dealing with any numbers as such, we will be dealing with mathematical concepts too, such as infinity and deductive and inductive arguments.
The teachers are very lovely. They are very good at explaining everything, and it's very easy to go to them for extra help, and there's workshops on and everything. And they make the course really enjoyable. They have a very engaging way of teaching that makes it very fun to actually go to the lessons.
The philosophy teachers are great. I think it's one of the best things about the course is how engaged the teachers are. Dan, for example, he runs workshops. Ollie and Dan both run workshops, but Dan this week has got his classroom open all week getting us ready for exams. And they're just both so engaged and really helpful, and always able to, when you reach out, they're always responding, and they're great. So
philosophy at Godalming is one of the greatest departments in the country. We have over 30 years of teaching experience. We are all experts in our fields, educated well beyond undergraduate level. We take pride in our ability to create an open and discussion-based atmosphere in the classroom, and we guide you through the material, the very challenging and difficult and abstract ideas that we encounter on A-level philosophy. We are ultimately dedicated to your success, and we hold many extra supercurricular and extracurricular activities that you can get involved in, be those trips or support workshop sessions that you can use to help.
After I finish at Godalming College, I plan to go to university to study neuroscience.
After college, I'm going to University of Leeds to study politics and philosophy.
So given the challenging and abstract ideas that are encountered in philosophy, we really do pride ourselves on our ability to create an open and discussion-based atmosphere in the classroom. We hope that sounds very interesting to you, and we hope that you're very intrigued by all the strange questions that are encountered on this course, and we really look forward to working with you soon.